Hello, nerds.
In order to control the amount of material on my brush, I have to constantly be wicking paint off of the brush. And over the years, I found that a paper towel took too much moisture all at once. So if I'm here, right, then I have my cup, right? So here's my Monument Hobby Nerd cup that I clean my water in. It's I can't even call that semi-clean. It's dirty-ass tap water. But I come in with my brush and I rinse it against the side of the brush, or the side of the cup, and get the paint out, right? And now I have as much water as this brush will hold, so it's a lot, right? See the shininess on the brush? That's a lot of water. If I come over here and touch that to my thumbnail, it puts a big droplet on there. Imagine that being the model. If I touch it with that much fluidity, it's hard to control where that paint goes. It's not a big blob. It's hard. I rub it all over the place. It like falls into the crevices and gets color into the panel lining that you didn't want it to go into. So I use my paper towel first if I know I don't need that much water, and I'll do like 1-2 swipes. Now I know it has less, right? Then I'll go over and I'll grab some paint, right? But now I've got quite a bit of paint on the brush. And so in order to reduce that amount, because still if I go over and paint with it, it's going to be a little bit blobby. See, I've got that shiny droplet on there because it's still got too much. That's hard to control. Unless I'm basing. If I'm basing the whole model, then I don't care. I just spread the paint around. Great. But in most cases, when I'm doing detail like I'm doing now, I'll take most of the color off, and it seems like a waste. But now I have very controllable paint. Now I have the tip of the brush does a lot of work, keeps a nice consistent line. I can do really fine detail, or I can still put out a lot of color. But every time I do, it's very consistent in the amount of color that gets delivered off of the brush, because there's no big dollop of paint waiting to kind of blop off of there. So now I can do everything I need to do, and when I notice that my strokes have got less paint coming on or whatever, then I go and I do it again, and I clean, wipe on my paper towel, grab the paint, and come over here and get most of the paint gone so that I can do my fine lines again and get, you know, a nice consistent flow of paint going. Right? So that's what the thumb palette is for. It is where I control the amount of moisture that's on my brush at all times. Now, like I said, if I'm base coating, you won't see me use it because the amount of paint on my brush can all go on the model, and I'll just spread it around because I'm not worried about getting it in places it shouldn't go. I'm base coating the whole model. I'm painting the whole model blue. I'm painting the whole model black. So it doesn't matter. Right? But as soon as I have to start looking at putting paint in specific places and not getting it on places next to that, I come over here and I control the amount of paint that's on my brush. Right? And you'll just get used to the feel of it, right? Because if you do this too long, you'll notice you stop getting paint, and then you go over to the model and do your brush stroke and you don't get anything. And so you're like, oh, I took off too much. When I'm using the thumb palette, I can see the opacity of my paint. Like I can put this paint over the last color I painted and see how much shows through. So as I'm going along, this is also not only getting the control of the material on the paint, but showing me the opacity. I know I've got a pretty good glaze here because that darker color is showing through the color I'm putting on. I know it's going to act the same way on the model. So when I come over here now, I know I'm safe going in and putting in my reflection color because it's not just going to be like painting white on the surface. It'll still give me some contrast, but I've already tested it on my thumb, so I know what opacity I'm really going to get.